All right, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar, which is titled Adopting and Maintaining a Healthy Mindset in Your Job Search. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. First, we'll start by examining some of the things that you may or may not realize are holding you back in your job search and negatively impacting your mindset as you search. Next, we'll talk about what a healthy mindset looks like and discuss some tangible strategies that you can employ to help improve your mindset. From there, we'll examine the idea of identifying and understanding your purpose and how it helps you be more resilient, motivated, and confident as you search for jobs. And then before we move on to our Q&A, we'll talk about creating a job search action plan that will help you maintain that healthy mindset as you go along throughout your search. And then finally, we'll close out our time together with a live audience Q&A so you have a chance to ask your questions directly with one of our career experts. So let's begin by examining some of the things that could potentially be holding you back during your job search and contributing to a less than healthy mindset for you. So I have broken this section into two parts because I think it's important to differentiate between external factors and internal factors that could be hindering your job search. And the reason it's important to differentiate between these factors is because of that line at the bottom of this slide. External factors are typically things that are entirely outside of your control, whereas internal factors are usually more within your control. And this is a crucial point to understand because fixating on things that you can't control tends to lead to unnecessary frustration and disappointment. But focusing on things that you can control usually leads to positive change. But let's start by looking at some of the external factors that could be holding you back. And first, we have economic outlook. If we are experiencing maybe an economic downturn, or if there are fears about a recession on the horizon, companies might slow down their hiring or even lay off some of their workforce, which of course leads to fewer job openings and more competition for what job openings are available, which makes job searching much more difficult. But during these times, it's important to remember that the economy fluctuates, and just because things might be slow right now doesn't mean that they'll stay that way. Then we have industry trends. Just like the economy, different industries can also fluctuate and they can fluctuate pretty rapidly. Maybe your industry is experiencing a decline that's reducing available jobs, or maybe it's actually growing, but that growth is more associated with skills or roles that you are missing. And when that happens, it can be helpful to maybe consider other fields or industries that you could transition to, or consider if there is any upskilling that you could do to remain competitive within your own industry. High competition is another factor that could be hindering your search. When a lot of people are vying for the same type of role, it can make the search much more challenging. And just like with industry trends, you want to take a closer look at the role that you've been targeting to see if there are others that could still be a good fit for you, but might be less competitive for whatever reason. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with targeting a highly competitive role or field, but you need to be mentally prepared for that fact so that you can, work hard to beat the competition. Internal hiring is another factor that is completely beyond your control. Sometimes companies post a role but already have an internal candidate that they have in mind that they want to hire for the position. This happens all the time, but it's not a reflection on you or what you have to offer. Yes, it's frustrating, but it's also something that you really can't control, and fixating on it is only going to increase that frustration. Then there are hiring freezes. Unexpected budget cuts or maybe decisions to restructure an organization can sometimes cause a freeze to be placed on all searches. And these freezes can sometimes happen abruptly, even if the search team has already started interviewing candidates. And this is really a situation where, unfortunately, all you can do is be as professional and understanding as possible, and then hope that they might end the freeze and reopen the search in the near future. And lastly, location. Job markets can vary geographically, and some areas might have higher unemployment rates or lower demand for your specific skills. But thankfully, remote work is kind of breaking down some of these location barriers. But there are still, location requirements for most remote roles, and competition for remote roles can be high. So that's also something that you want to prepare yourself for. And I'm not sharing these external factors to try to discourage you. I'm sharing them for kind of the opposite reason. It's important to understand that these factors do exist and that they could potentially be impacting your search because again, they are not within your own control, which means that you very likely aren't doing anything wrong and your job search challenges are not a reflection on you or your value. And there are certainly some things about your job search that you could improve, and we'll talk about some of those later. But let's first go over some internal factors that you might not realize are hindering your job search because these are factors that are more within your control. Okay, so we'll pivot now to internal factors that are potentially hindering your search and negatively impacting your mindset before we start talking about what a healthy mindset looks like and some ways that you can work towards adopting a healthier mindset. And first, we have self-doubt and self-limiting beliefs, which is likely something that everyone in this webinar has experienced or can relate to. And this includes things like criticizing yourself, dwelling on past mistakes, doubting your abilities, feeling like an imposter, or believing that you're inadequate. And this type of thinking can, erode your confidence and make it harder to present yourself in a positive way. But I think it's important to understand that nearly everyone has these feelings. So it is not, abnormal that you might be experiencing it as well. And it's also important to remind yourself that no one starts anything as an expert. We all make mistakes and we all learn and grow along the way. Fear of failure and fear of rejection is another internal factor that holds a lot of us back. This fear can make it difficult to present yourself effectively in an interview, for example, and it can even lead to you, eliminating yourself from certain roles because you'd rather not apply than get a rejection. But you need to remember that rejection is a natural part of the job search process, and it's something that all job seekers experience. And it's also important to understand that, this fear of rejection has roots in our biology. It's a survival instinct, from a time when our ancestors relied on social connections for their actual physical survival. But rejection or failure in today's world isn't as high stakes as it was in early human history. So these fears can be managed and overcome. It just takes practice. Perfectionism is another thing that holds many job seekers back. Striving for perfection typically leads to procrastination, overthinking, and an inability to make decisions, which can all hinder your search. But in reality, perfection isn't realistically attainable, and good enough is usually just that, good enough. Another factor that hinders job seekers is the need for instant gratification. The job search is a process that can take quite a long time. So, expecting immediate results or setting unrealistic goals for yourself is going to quickly deplete your mental energy and negatively impact your ability to maintain a positive, motivated mindset throughout your search. The job search can also be a very lonely or isolating experience, which can also damage your mindset. And this can be especially true if you aren't currently working, but most of the other people within your social circles are, which is why it's important to remember that you can and should lean on others when you're job searching. And that doesn't mean that you're leaning on others to do all your job search work for you, but friends, family, former colleagues, mentors, support groups with other job seekers, and even career coaches that you might hire can help you provide with advice and support to break through the isolation. So remember that you don't have to go it alone through your job search. And then lastly, All of these things can result in burnout and low motivation, or you could be struggling with low motivation from maybe a toxic work environment that you just left or a traumatic experience like a layoff. And it isn't uncommon to feel, overwhelmed and exhausted by job searching, particularly in the face of rejection, which again is a normal part of the process. But if you don't work to manage it effectively, the burnout can worsen and make it even harder to keep going. And it definitely isn't easy to control these internal factors, but every factor that we went over on this slide is absolutely something that can be impacted at least a little bit by your own thoughts and actions. And my hope is that, some of the strategies we discuss in the next section can help you manage these internal factors a bit more effectively so you can adopt and maintain that healthier mindset as you job search. Okay, so let's go ahead now and dig into what a healthy mindset looks like and then cover some strategies that can help you adopt that type of mindset more easily. So, this is not an all-encompassing list of things that are included in what we think of as a healthy mindset, but these are absolutely some important elements of a healthy mindset. And understanding these elements can help you in trying to exercise and sort of exemplify these traits yourself. So, it's definitely worth going over in this webinar. And the first element of a healthy mindset is to be growth oriented. What this means is that you are someone who embraces challenges as opportunities to learn and grow rather than, threats to be avoided. And it also means that you believe that you can learn from your mistakes, that there is value in critical feedback, and that you can use these things to continuously develop and improve. People who possess a healthy mindset also tend to be self aware and introspective. This means that you are able to recognize your thoughts and emotions. You are able to understand how you are feeling and why you are feeling that way. And you are able to identify patterns in your thinking. It also means that you have a realistic view of yourself, including, your strengths and your weaknesses, and you understand the values and goals that drive you and give you, direction and purpose. A healthy mindset also means that you are able to maintain a sense of hope and optimism. And this doesn't mean that you aren't ever allowed to feel, gloomy or pessimistic, but rather that you generally expect that good things will happen, and you believe in your ability to overcome difficulties and challenges, even if it might take time to overcome them. People with a healthy mindset are also compassionate, and this means being compassionate to both yourself and to others. You're willing to treat yourself with kindness and offer yourself the same type of compassion and understanding that you would offer a friend, especially in the face of a mistake, a setback, or a failure, because you are willing to forgive yourself for your mistakes. And it also means that you prioritize self-care with both your physical and your mental health. And you make time for things like exercise, healthy eating, and relaxation. Essentially the things that help you recharge and re-energize. And in terms of compassion to others, it means that you care about building strong, supportive relationships, and your network or your circle of friends and family and acquaintances is one where people give and receive encouragement and support to and from one another, while also maintaining healthy boundaries as well. A healthy mindset is also an appreciative mindset, one where you focus on, the positive aspects of your life and practice gratitude by, recognizing the good things that happen to you rather than fixating only on the negative things in life. And then lastly, a healthy mindset is a resilient mindset, meaning that you possess grit and determination and are able to bounce back from setbacks because you view the challenges that life throws at you as a way to, make you stronger and better prepared to face similar challenges in the future. And it's really important to remember that a healthy mindset is not about being happy all the time. What it actually means is that you have the tools and skills to navigate the challenges of life with resilience, self-awareness, and an overall positive outlook. So hopefully you already possess many of these elements, but we all face times in life where these elements of our mindset are maybe overshadowed or overpowered by some of the negative internal factors we mentioned earlier. So now let's turn to some strategies that can help you strengthen these healthy elements. So, the first strategy to discuss is one that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, and it is practicing mindfulness. But mindfulness, if you aren't familiar, it involves paying close attention to the present moment rather than letting your thoughts wander over, past or present worries. You kind of aim to focus on what you are doing or feeling right now. And the goal is to observe your thoughts without judgment, acknowledging your emotions without getting carried away by them. And you can try to do this through things like, meditation, deep breathing exercises, or body scans. For me, mindfulness is easiest to practice when I'm doing something like, walking my dog, because I can focus on my surroundings and work to kind of silence or quiet my emotions. And even if you feel, anxious or stressed or worried, try your best to kind of notice the feeling, but then let it pass. Practicing mindfulness can help you cultivate present moment awareness. It can help you regulate your emotions more effectively in the future, and it can help you enhance your focus and productivity, all of which can help you increase, self-awareness and decrease stress. The next strategy, we have positive self-talk. And positive self-talk is more than, just telling yourself nice things or complimenting yourself. It involves actually challenging your negative thoughts. For instance, you might think, oh, I'll never get hired. And you can challenge that thought with evidence by thinking about past work successes and reminding yourself of your valuable skills and experience. Some people like to do this with positive affirmations in times of stress. So, for example, if you get anxious maybe before interviews, you can try to use an affirmation like, they want me to succeed, to help remind yourself that the employer is hoping you'll be the right candidate for them as much as you're hoping the same thing. And positive self-talk is easiest when you focus on your strengths and remind yourself of the accomplishments and skills that you bring to the table. And you can even reflect on, past positive feedback that you've gotten to support, or to provide evidence to support that notion of your positive attributes. Next is goal setting, which might sound a little strange in terms of improving your mindset, but it can really help counteract some of those negative factors that we talked about, like perfectionism and the need for instant gratification. If you are able to set realistic goals for yourself and break down those goals into smaller, more manageable steps, instead of aiming for, overly broad or lofty goals, you'll find that you begin to have more successes than failures over time. For instance, instead of, saying an overly broad goal like I need to find a job right now, you can set more realistic goals of I want to submit 5 applications this week and try to network with 2 new people in my field. Those goals are much more realistic and manageable, and they will help you where you ultimately want to be over time. And with your goal setting, it can also be helpful to track your progress with your job search activities so that you can potentially adjust your goals if necessary. But also, it's helpful to track your progress so that you can celebrate all of your wins, which aligns with our next strategy, which is practicing gratitude. Practicing gratitude means that you take time each day to appreciate the good things in your life, even when you are in the midst of a challenging time like job searching. And the reason that this aligns nicely with tracking your goals and you're tracking your progress in achieving those goals is because practicing gratitude can also include celebrating all of your wins, big or small, because progress in the face of adversity is always worth celebrating and being grateful for. Even if your only win some days is, I submitted that application even though I really didn't feel like it, that can be considered a win and is worth celebrating. And some people find that starting their day with 5 to 10 minutes of journaling can really help them combine a lot of these strategies because you can be mindful as you journal, and the things that you write about can be related to positive self-talk, related to your goals for that day, and also to things that you are grateful for. Another important strategy to consider is seeking support from others. This can be simply talking to friends or family about your job search, maybe sharing experiences with others who are in the same boat as you, like maybe a job search support group, or even hiring the services of a professional for guidance and support. Either way, though, you really don't have to go it alone and keep all of those, concerns or feelings bottled up. When you talk to people about the things that are troubling you, they tend to become much more manageable. It's almost as though, simply voicing them aloud makes them less daunting. And then lastly, a smart strategy for any job seeker, whether you have a healthy mindset already or not, is to create structure in your job search. Structuring and organizing your job search helps you break down the process so you're less likely to feel overwhelmed. It also helps you regain a sense of control over your search. It helps you boost your motivation and productivity and promotes an increased sense of self accomplishment because it's easier to track your progress and your wins, like we talked about earlier, when you are, kind of setting tangible milestones for yourself. And some of the things that you can do in order to create structure include, scheduling out your job search activities each day. So you have specific periods of time dedicated to certain tasks, creating and prioritizing to-do lists and setting deadlines for each task to keep you on track or on schedule. Using a spreadsheet to track your activities so you can easily monitor your progress and adjust as needed, and creating a dedicated workspace for yourself that is only used for your job search. And it can also be helpful to schedule in time for breaks so you're having a chance to keep up with your self-care and healthy habits so that you are able to, recharge your batteries and maintain that motivation. But over time, if you set a structure, over time it will become routine, making it easier and easier to follow, and helping ensure that you're doing what you need to do to support your mental well-being, keep up your productivity levels, and ultimately increase your chances of success in the job search. So, something else that's important to consider in terms of your mindset during the job search is your purpose. It's what I often refer to as your why. So, let's talk about that now. What I mean by your why is trying to determine, what it is that drives you and keeps you moving forward. And sometimes your why can be as simple as, I need to pay my bills so I can live the lifestyle that I want to live. Other times it's maybe a little deeper than that, like a type of work that you're passionate about, or people that you really care about being able to help or work with. But regardless, asking yourself some of the questions here on this slide, these are good questions for self-reflection, and they can help you better understand your why, your purpose, so that you have something fulfilling to work towards. It allows you to kind of move with intention. It helps you maintain motivation. It makes you more resilient, and it improves your confidence because you know what you want and why you want it. And to be perfectly candid, very few jobs are 100% fulfilling. But if you can keep your specific why, the reason you're doing what you're doing or searching for the type of job that you're searching for at the forefront of your mind, it can make it less overwhelming because, it gives you that direction to keep moving in, and it helps energize you as you go along because you can remind yourself of your why as you move throughout the process. So, understanding your purpose or your why is definitely worth taking time to consider. Okay, so we've been talking primarily about things that you can do to help improve your mindset as you job search. But as we start to close out, let's talk about creating an action plan for your job search, which will help you search more effectively, increase your chances of success, and help you maintain that positive mindset along the way. So, the very first thing you want to do as you create your job search action plan is to start with clarity. What I mean by this is that you want to make sure that you know what type of role you're trying to target and how your existing skills and experience align with that target role. If you aren't clear on your target role, it becomes incredibly difficult to search with intention and present your skills, experience, and overall value in a way that is going to be relevant and impactful to employers. So this is absolutely a crucial first step in your job search plan, getting that clarity and understanding your target role. Next, like we talked about before, you want to create structure in your search and set some realistic goals for yourself that are designed to help you progress seamlessly from point A to points B, C, D, E, and so on. Without structure, it can be really easy to become overwhelmed, and without realistic goals, it can be really easy to lose track of your sense of motivation. Then you want to work on refreshing your materials, meaning your resume, your cover letter, online profiles, and really any other job search assets that you might have, like maybe a portfolio of your work. And what you want to do is you want to think about your target role and then think about, the recruiters and hiring managers looking to fill those types of positions, and then align your materials accordingly. This way you're sort of thinking about your audience and making sure that you are showcasing, what you bring to the table, your skills, experience, and accomplishments in a way that is going to resonate with them and matter to them. The job market can be highly competitive, like we talked about earlier. So refreshing and customizing and tailoring your materials to appeal to your target audience is what's going to help you stand out from the crowd. Next, try to tap into your network. And this can mean both, sort of reestablishing existing or old relationships and trying to build new ones with people who are, doing the type of work that you want to be doing, or maybe working at the type of companies that you want to be working at. Because remember, you don't want to isolate yourself during your job search. So tapping into your network will not only help you avoid those potential feelings of loneliness, but it can also lead to some solid job search advice, maybe help you learn about opportunities you might not have found otherwise, and even possibly land you a referral for an open role. Along those same lines, you should aim to increase your visibility. And what I primarily mean by this is that you should leverage, online social networking platforms like LinkedIn. Make sure that you're following people in roles you're hoping to land at companies that you'd like to work at, and then engaging with those people and those companies so that you become more visible. Liking and commenting on posts in an authentic and insightful way can help you get noticed, as can, sharing articles and posts that are relevant to your field and your industry. This strategy helps you kind of position yourself as someone who is knowledgeable about and committed to your field of interest, which is something that definitely matters to employers. Next, you want to keep building your skills as you go along. When you're reviewing job descriptions for your target roles, are there any skills gaps that you can maybe identify? Can you find ways to learn and apply those skills so that you can then market that you have them to potential employers? If you can work on building and growing your skill sets, you'll make sure that you're keeping yourself competitive in your field of interest. And then lastly, like we talked about, make sure to track your progress so you can stay organized and so you're able to celebrate all of your wins along the way, which again will help you maintain that positive mindset. Okay, so just a few quick action steps and reminders as we close out our presentation. Remember to analyze the obstacles that are hindering your search so you can differentiate between things you can control versus the things that you cannot control. Make sure that you try to reframe challenges and setbacks to instead view them as opportunities to learn and grow, understanding that setbacks are only temporary. Take time to understand your why and set goals for yourself so you know what drives you, so you can search with intention and focus, and so you can celebrate your wins along the way. And then remember to create an action plan and adapt as you go along, because structure is important in your job search, and you want to keep an eye out for opportunities to improve. All right. So, as a reminder, a copy of the recording as well as resources discussed within the presentation will be emailed out within the next week. Do be sure to check your spam folder just in case it gets filtered there. For even more tips, tricks, and resources, I recommend going to the FlexJobs blog. You'll see the URL there on the screen. It includes a vast amount of free articles, resources, webinars, and videos for members and non members alike. Now, let's go ahead and open up to questions. Please remember to type them in the Q&A section rather than the chat section, and feel free to give a thumbs up to anyone else's question that you'd also like to hear the answer to so we know which are the most popular. All right, everyone. We are now going to turn to our Q&A portion of the webinar. Before we dive into your questions, can someone in the chat let me know you can hear me? And it looks like, okay, a lot of people are on the ball today. Thank you very much for that. All right, so my name is Keith Spencer once again, and I am one of our career experts here at FlexJobs, and I will be answering your questions for you. So let's go ahead over to that Q&A tab together, and remember to click the thumbs up button on questions you want to hear the answer to, because I will prioritize them based on the number of upvotes. So our first question here, this person is saying that they have heard that if you are anywhere between 50 and 80% of the skills and responsibilities for a job post, you should apply. Is this realistic? Would you even have a chance with only 50%? So yes, this is realistic, but let me dig into it a little bit more, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So if you are applying for things that you're only, or that you are, sorry, fumbling over my words. If you are only applying for things that you are 100% qualified for, then you are putting yourself at a disadvantage and potentially missing out on opportunities. Now, do keep in mind that, there's a difference when you're looking at a job description between preferred qualifications and required qualifications. Typically, you want to, make sure that you have at least 60%, 60 to 70% of what they're looking for. But if you are missing, more than maybe just one of the required qualifications, then your chances could be pretty low. But if you are looking at a job description and you can confidently say, okay, I have done or can do at least 60% of what they're looking for, then it's worth applying. They are going to, onboard you. They are going to train you. There are going to be, support structures in place to help you, bring you up to speed and help you master that role. That's why they say, no one is really, a master at their role or an expert at their role until they've hit like the 6 months to a year mark. Sometimes it takes, even longer than that. It could be a year plus. So yes, absolutely. It is okay to apply for things as long as you hit about 60 to 70%. 50%, you're probably not going to have, a really good chance. But, if you are really, really interested in that role and passionate about, that organization, just as an example, you could still give it a try. Worst case scenario, they just don't ask you to sit for an interview. So, it is, and you maybe have wasted a little bit of your time, but, it is okay to apply for things that you have less than 100% of the qualifications. But think of it too, kind of as sort of a sliding scale. For me, it makes me think of, guidance counselors in high school talking about, applying to, safety schools when you're thinking about applying to college versus reach schools. So it's the same kind of thing with jobs. If you're applying for something that you're 80+% qualified for, that's going to be a little bit safer. You're going to have a little bit of an increased chance of landing that role versus something that you're only 60 to 70% qualified for. But again, it's still worth it because you never know what that competition looks like. You never know, the specific preferences of the hiring team. Maybe they see something on your resume and that gives you a boost that you didn't realize would give you a boost. So yes, absolutely, you can apply for things as long as you have, 60 or so percent of the qualification. So good question. Thank you for asking that. And hopefully that answer was helpful. Okay, our next one here. So this person is asking, what is your advice when you face ageism in your job search, especially when you want to shift to a new career? So a couple things I will touch on here in regards to ageism. But the first thing that I want to emphasize is, you want the focus to be on your skills and, the value that you bring to the table rather than emphasizing your age. So you need to make sure that you are doing that. You want to make sure that you are placing your skills and experience and value at the forefront of, the way that you're presenting yourself. So your resume, your cover letter, your interview responses, rather than your age. So try as best you can, because I know it's difficult to put the age factor out of your mind, because that's, again, another thing that you can't control. Like, you have no idea if that company or that hiring team or that recruiter or whoever is, in any way age biased. And they might not even know, because a lot of times ageism happens through sort of unconscious bias. So try your best to not, fixate on the fear of ageism, because that can then come through in your materials, in your interview responses, and things like that. The way, though, that you can, try to pivot or shift the focus to your skills and your value is a couple things that you can do. So first, with your resume, in your professional experience section, you want to include the last 10 to 15 years of experience. And I recommend this kind of regardless of age, because you want the focus to be on your most recent and relevant things that you have done. Now, there are some instances where, maybe if you've bounced around a little bit, or like you're talking about here, shifting to a new career, some of your earlier experience beyond that 15-year range falls into the category of being highly relevant for the type of role that you're targeting. So you could add to your resume an additional related experience section right after your professional experience section, where you include, one, maybe two of your earlier jobs that are highly relevant to your target role. And you just have like 2 or 3 bullet points describing each of those roles, again, focusing on the relevant things that you did, but then you omit the dates. So that way you're kind of getting some of that relevant experience on there, but you're not necessarily drawing attention to your age, or, the year that you, the year of when you worked there, the time span that you worked there. Sorry, fumbling over my words a lot today. Another thing you can do, again, to get the focus more on, your skills and your value rather than your age, you can omit dates of like your degrees and things like that. Honestly, unless you graduated in the last like 2 or 3 years, you don't need the dates for those on there. A lot of times applications will ask for that information. If that's the case, there's not really a great workaround. You could try putting like, 1111 as the year or something like that. But I normally myself just put the date in if it's asking for that. But then also, focusing on the value that you bring to the table. So when you are shifting a new career, I've used the word relevant a lot today, right? So you want to focus on relevance. So make sure that you are carefully analyzing that job description and pulling in the things from your potentially non-relevant roles or non-related roles, but focusing on the relevant aspects of those roles. So anytime you're making a career change, you want to focus on transferable skills. You want to focus on things that you have done that are, maybe not exactly a match, but are very similar to what they're looking for, to help kind of, shift that focus to, okay, I might be missing a little bit of what you're looking for, but, here are all the things that I have that are going to make me great in this type of role. And another way that you can kind of do that on your resume or in your cover letter even, is to just bring the attention to those things a little bit earlier. So a section that you could add to your resume before your professional experience section, like right after your professional summary section, you could call it highlighted attributes or highlighted contributions, and you kind of use it as like a miscellaneous or sort of a catch-all section where you're pulling in your most relevant and impactful accomplishments and skills, to bring those to kind of the forefront of the hiring manager's attention. But again, you're trying to get them to focus on your value, so you need to make sure you're doing the same, not fixating on your age, because age is one of those things that you cannot control. And I'll also throw this out there. I always recommend to kind of like leaning into the stereotypes, so to speak. So think about the unfair, of course, stereotypes, negative stereotypes that are often associated with people who are more advanced in their career. And then try to give some examples of how those stereotypes do not apply to you. And then on the flip side, again, these can be unfair stereotypes, but think of some of the positive stereotypes that are often associated with people that are earlier in their career and show how those positive stereotypes, they do apply to you. So leaning into those stereotypes can be beneficial as well. But ageism is a very important topic, but it's one we could talk about for hours. So hopefully that is enough to help you, at least for now. But we'll move on to our next question. Thank you for asking that question. Okay, so our next one here, given the widespread use of ATS or applicant tracking systems and the need to tailor resumes with keywords, how many job applications should one realistically complete in a week? So yeah, this is a really good question. You're kind of asking about, if I'm taking that quality over quantity approach, well, what is the right kind of quantity I should be looking for? And that's going to be different for everybody. And it might even change for you as you search, because, to be perfectly honest, when I first, when the light bulb went on for me, and I realized, I need to be tailoring my applications, because of course, like I mentioned in the webinar, I was not an expert at career development stuff at the beginning of my career. I learned and I grew, and I trial and error. I made mistakes. But when the light bulb went off for me and I realized I need to be tailoring, I was really slow at it. It would take me 3-4 hours to tailor my resume, to tailor my cover letter. But now I've done it enough and I understand how it works that I can do it pretty quickly. I can get it done in 45 minutes to an hour. So, think about like, okay, how long does this take me? What is sort of a reasonable amount of time per application? And then, if it is taking you a lot of time, maybe do one a day. So you're hitting, 5 to 7 a week. Maybe you're taking your weekend off. Totally respect that. You need that time to reset and recharge. Or, if it's a little bit quicker for you and you can do 2 or 3 a day, that's fine too. So some of it's going to be, availability too. Like how many openings are there for your type of role and your field? Is it the type of thing that there's an endless supply, or is it a highly competitive field where there's only maybe, a handful of postings coming out new each week? So that's going to be a factor as well. So really just kind of, as long as you are focusing on that quality over quantity approach, that's what matters the most. And then, as you kind of figure out how long it takes you, then you can kind of set that realistic goal for yourself. And I will throw out here, if you've been in a webinar with me before, you've probably heard me talk about this strategy. But one of the things that I like to do that saves me a lot of time with this tailoring is anytime I'm job searching, I usually have somewhere along the lines of like 2 to 4 kind of target roles that I'm looking at. When I think about my clarity, what role do I want to target? Well, usually it's more than one. It's always at least 2, I would say. Now, those roles have a lot of similarities. There's a lot of like overlap between them, but they also have their nuances and differences. So I will create a base resume for each one of my target roles that is already tailored to that type of role. So that way I've already started with sort of, or I'm not starting from scratch every single time, I should say. So when I find a job that I want to apply for, I'll make a copy of the appropriate base resume, and then I will tailor it further, focusing the bulk of my tailoring efforts on, my professional summary section. Maybe I've included that highlighted achievement section, that kind of thing. But, for my base resumes, I'm still including the same jobs on each base resume, but the way that I describe those jobs, my bullet points, the skills I'm highlighting, the accomplishments I'm emphasizing, those will be different between my base resumes. So that can help you save some time and maybe, get that number of applications each week, realistic number of applications each week up a little higher for you. Okay, so good question. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you for asking that. Next one here, are there resources or assessments you'd recommend to get that clarity? So yeah, finding that clarity can be really challenging. There are definitely some assessments out there that you can take, some free ones that I know of, careeronestop.org. There are some, self-assessments on there that could help you. So again, that's careeronestop.org. And then there is also ONET, which is just ONET online.org. So onetonline.org. Both of those are sort of career exploration websites that can, be beneficial for you. Another strategy, it's not necessarily an assessment, but AI tools. You could go to, ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, Microsoft's Copilot, whatever your AI tool of choice is, and just, start telling it kind of what you like, what you don't like, what skills you have, the type of jobs you've held in the past, and then just say, do you have any suggestions for what I might want to target? And then it'll offer you, a list of suggestions, and you can dig deeper. You could say, oh, well, that one sounds interesting. Can you tell me more? And then you could ask about the requirements for that type of job, et cetera, et cetera. So, AI tools can be really good to kind of, brainstorm and bounce some of those ideas off of when you're looking for that clarity. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Our next one says, how do I overcome ageism? We did already talk about that, so I'm going to skip that question. Okay, so our next one here, this person is saying, what are your top 3 suggestions that must be placed on your LinkedIn profile to optimize your opportunities or engage with recruiters? So, all right, so I would say the top things are your headline. So try to make sure your headline is not just job title at company name. Like try to, you could have it sort of be your job title, but then also, include something about like, who you enjoy helping or what problems you like to solve, what outcomes you're good at achieving. So your headline is a good one because that's the first thing people are going to see about you. Then the second thing people are going to see about you is your about section. So you want it to be almost like your elevator pitch, kind of gear it towards your target audience. Who are you? What's your value? What do you have to offer? A lot of people will call your about section your unique value proposition. So kind of make it that, what is it that, what are the problems you solve? Who do you help? What are the challenges you overcome? What are the results you achieve? Like focus on, your value, what you bring to the table. And then the third thing is kind of think about it in terms of like tailoring for specific jobs. Recruiters are going to find you on LinkedIn, or your profile will appeal to recruiters if you're hitting the keywords, right? So pay attention to job descriptions that you're looking at and think about like, okay, how can I weave some of these keywords and these skills and these competencies? How can I make sure that they are present in my profile? Because the algorithms that recruiters are using to find you and that they're looking for when they review your LinkedIn when you apply for a job, they're looking again for what's going to matter to them. And what matters to them is the type of stuff that you find in job descriptions. Now, I will say, and this goes back to tailoring as well, don't make the mistake of doing what I call keyword stuffing. If you are reading job descriptions and picking out keywords and then just jamming those keywords into your resume, into your LinkedIn profile without really any context, like, yeah, you might come up on searches or you might score well with an ATS, but then once a human is actually reviewing your material, it's not going to make a lot of sense, right? So you need to take more of like a show rather than just tell approach. Like, don't just list a ton of skills. Explain how you used those skills to achieve positive results. So avoid that keyword stuffing. That's a really important thing to mention there. Okay, so we're a little bit over time. I'm going to try to squeeze in one, maybe 2 more questions here. So this person's asking, would you advise taking a whole day away from job searching just to reset? So that's a tricky question to answer because, I don't know how burned out you are. If you feel like, oh, this has been exhausting. I really can't stand, filling out another application. I'm demoralized. Like if you are feeling really low and really burned out, absolutely take a whole day, take 2 days, take whatever you need. You need to be your best self to present yourself in the best possible way. Now, if you're feeling like, okay, I haven't been job searching that long, I'm able to view it as, a challenge or an exciting thing to overcome rather than, a burden. I'm not feeling burned out. Then no, maybe you just need like an hour or so each day to recharge your batteries. So it's really going to depend on you. But, again, if you are feeling really low, really burned out, absolutely. The advice, like you can't pour from an empty bucket, or you can't, you got to fill your bucket. You know what I'm saying? Like you need to do the things that are going to allow you to be your best self. So if you need a whole day to do that, if you need 2 days to do that, yeah, I mean, I can understand that completely. And then going forward, maybe in your structure, in your schedule that you're creating, think about like, okay, how can I work time into each day where I'm able to recharge, able to get that rest that I need to be my best self. So hopefully that is helpful. And then I am going to squeeze in this one last question here. So this person is sharing with us that they feel as though they're at a disadvantage. They dropped out of college to serve as a caregiver for a parent. They've been self-employed and self-educated, I'm assuming they're saying, and they've explored their passions, but they're having difficulty entering the workforce in an official capacity. They have the expertise for advanced roles, but they're having difficulty finding the opening to connect. What are some tips I can use to build structure and confidence in my capabilities and value despite the lack of paid work? Or I think paid work is what they meant to say there. So okay, so a couple things. Don't downplay your being self-employed. Being self-employed and being self-educated, that can be extremely valuable. Make sure that you have that sort of effectively explained or prominently placed on your resume, on your LinkedIn. If you have samples of your work that you can share, like creating a portfolio or uploading some samples to your LinkedIn profile, like if that's relevant to your field, definitely do that. Like show off what you've done as a self-employed person. You include some of the projects you've worked on as a self-educated individual. Then in terms of like breaking into your field in an official capacity, like yes, you're saying that you're qualified for advanced roles, but think of that sliding scale that I was talking about earlier in terms of like qualifications. So you might be at this disadvantage that you're describing because you're applying for some of those advanced roles, but people don't see the official work on your resume, so they don't think you're qualified. So maybe think like, okay, are there other roles that are adjacent or just a step or two below these type of roles that I've been targeting that I could maybe do for a year or two just as a stepping stone? Like, don't forget about stepping stone roles, because those can really help you just kind of get your foot in the door, make that positive impression. Like if you get that stepping stone role and you're just like crushing it, like knocking it out of the park, well, then chances are good you're going to be able to leverage that for a higher up role, either at that organization or a different organization in the future. So don't overlook those as a strong possibility or as a strong avenue to kind of reaching what you eventually want. But definitely make sure that you are not downplaying your self-employed work, any of the projects you did for your customers or clients, or even if they were just kind of independent projects you did for fun. Like get those on a portfolio, showcase those, really leverage that experience. Just because you weren't employed by an official company or something like that, that's okay. You were still doing the work. So, communicate that effectively. That would be sort of my, in the minute or two that I had to spend on that question, that would be like the biggest thing that I would emphasize there. A lot of us downplay our achievements when we should not. We should be advocating for ourselves. We should be highlighting those achievements and presenting them to our audience. So, okay, so we are quite a bit over time, so I'm going to have to draw to a close. Really hope that this was helpful for you all. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and ask your insightful questions. Highly encourage you to check out some of our future webinars. Even though next week is a holiday in the US, we are still having some webinars early in the week. On Tuesday, November 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we have a webinar called AI-Powered Interview Prep, Ace Your Next Job Interview. And on Wednesday, November 27th at 11 a.m. Eastern, we have a webinar called How to Beat Inflation with a Side Hustle and Freelance Work. So again, really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Hope that this was helpful for you all, and I wish you all the best of luck in your job search. Take care.